Hi, thanks for stopping by again today. Just have a little short story I want to tell you about my maternal third great grandmother. And her name was Mary Byington Southworth. And I actually got a picture of her right here. And I'm only going to start. I want to talk a little bit about the trek west. Chester, her husband, and Mary Byington Southworth, again, my maternal third great grandparents, crossed the plains in 1852. And I'm going to just tell you a couple of excerpts out of a journal that was kept by one of their daughters, who would have been my aunt, talking about what it was like to cross the plains in the early days of the church. And they actually started out on the 30th of June of 1852, but and left and crossed the Missouri River on that date. But before they left, one of the apostles, his name was Ezra T. Benson, came to speak with that group before they started their trek west. And this is the comment that he made. "It is your duty to laugh and dance and make merry as much as you can to be able to make it to the valley." I thought that was a very interesting comment, that through all the hardships that the saints had suffered and through all the tribulation and just the horrendous experiences that they had, their duty was to laugh, dance, and make merry, to be able to make it to the valley. I think that's a pretty incredible comment, and I really find that to be interesting. In the journal entries, it makes a comment here. It says, whenever they camped by a stream, they would wash their clothes and dry them on the prairie grass. In areas where the water was really bad, they had to rely on the cows for milk to drink. That was the only thing they had. To save on flour, they would grind parched corn and add milk to it for a meal. They cooked by digging a hole and putting the cast iron skillet in the hole, putting the lid on tightly, and covering the whole thing with buffalo chips, and then setting it on fire, it being the buffalo chips. It says they were able to make bread just fine. I thought that was interesting. Now, beginning when their group reached the North Platte River, they put in what they called camping procedures into place. And it was such that the mules and the horses were tied inside the wagon circle each night, and no one was to leave the camp without permission. The Indians caused a lot of problems. It said that they would set prairie fires all around the saints, and they were so close, it says their faces and their clothing were black from the flying ash. Now that's a story I had never come across before, that the Indians had actually set prairie fires to torment the saints. I thought that was interesting. Now, when great-great-great-grandmother Southworth reached Fort Bridger, there was an army post there at Fort Bridger, which I think is still, you can stop off at Fort Bridger today. I remember doing that as a boy. The pioneers spent the day repairing wagon wheels and making general preparations for continuing the trek west. It says that they were able to catch mountain trout, and they really enjoyed an opportunity to eat the fresh fish and to clean up and to rest. The Southworths were part of the John B. Walker Company, and they reached the Salt Lake Valley on either the 5th or the 7th of October of 1852. There's two different records with two different dates, so I'm not sure whichever one. But here's the thing I find interesting. Upon their arrival to the Salt Lake Valley, every member of the John B. Walker Company was, by order of President Brigham Young, was baptized again. And as Brigham Young said, that their being rebaptized would wash away our sins after our long and tedious journey. So I find that interesting that the group, and I think it was quite a few, were actually rebaptized into the church upon reaching the Salt Lake Valley. The Southworths were directed to a little place called Centerville. When they arrived in the valley, they lived there for 1 year, and then moved down to a place called Tooele, and spent 4 years there before finally moving up in 1863. They arrived in Brigham City, Utah. And Chester and his sons at that point started a tanning, shoe, and a leather business, and they were very successful in that. And I did find some indications that Mary, Byington Southworth, she actually was a teacher and a midwife, and for a long time was the only quote-unquote doctor in the area. So I found that to be quite interesting. So again, great stories of endurance. The fact that they were commanded by an apostle of the Lord to laugh and dance and make merry on their way. Maybe there's a good lesson in that as we go through life ourselves. So again, thanks for coming by. We'll talk to you again next time. Thanks.